You're tuned in to episode 6. Before I get into the video clips, it's very important to pay attention to the very first one. It's Kristalina Georgieva, who is the head managing director of the International Monetary Fund, aka the IMF. This is the entity that controls all of the banks of the world, minus the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of central banks. Kristalina Georgieva says in the first segment, they put a floor underneath the economies of the world. That means that evenly, the nations cannot go any lower. All of the money printing and stimulus that they're doing is no doubt dragging down the economies of the world and is making inflation go crazy. The plan was always to level the playing field. Coming out of this, they have something called the Great Reset. Crypto will be heavily used, and I'll talk about that later in the crypto segment. Pay attention, tune in, tell your friends and family, the Great Reset is here.
Very much for continuing on the path of having this discussion. To answer your question, let me start with where we are and where we are headed in the world economy and how that translates into actions countries pursue. Where we are, as you said, we put the floor under the world economy, remarkable actions by governments and central banks. And at that stage, we really didn't have to be differentiating between potentially winners and losers. It is a floor for everyone. We are reaching a point when there has to be continuation of support. This is what we say at the IMF, do not withdraw support prematurely, but this support has to be more differentiated in terms of what is it that is the economy of the future demanding from actions today. And in that regard, what we see as promising steps in many places is a triage. One, very forceful support for the health of people so we can put an end to the pandemic and do that universally. Still work to be done in that regard. Two, a lot of attention to what would be the engine of productivity for tomorrow. Let's remember, before this crisis, we did have a worry. The worry was growth was anemic, productivity was low. Is it now possible to inject more momentum through betting on accelerated digital transformation? And we see a lot of countries and companies paying attention to that. And three, and this third one is very important, we face a very serious risk of a tale of two cities. The part of the economy that is digital and leaning forward does well. The rest does very poorly, and there is no transmission line for workers or businesses to adjust. And we want to use our capacity to present to the world where progress is made and where is not, and our capacity to influence financial institutions to accelerate the transition to a greener future. So bottom line, there is good momentum built, but it is not everywhere, and it is not yet to a point of sustainability that can make us all feel like the Great Reset is happening.
we have an incredible opportunity to create entirely new sustainable industries, investing in nature as the true engine of our economy.
The current global crisis has disrupted every aspect of our lives, but it has also presented us with an extraordinary opportunity, a chance to reset and accelerate efforts to improve the state of our world.
Changing our current trajectory will require bold and imaginative action, together with determination and decisive leadership. In order to secure our future and to prosper, we need to evolve our economic model, putting people and planet at the heart of global value creation. If there is one critical lesson we have to learn from this crisis, we need to put nature at the heart of how we operate. We are on the verge of catalytic breakthroughs that will alter our view of what is possible and profitable within the framework of a sustainable future. We need nothing short of a paradigm shift, one that inspires action at revolutionary levels and pace. We simply cannot waste any more time. The only limit is our willingness to act. And the time to act is now.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis. And now is the time for all of us to define our own role. What is it that would make it so that history would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset?
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate and rebalance our world. Rebalancing investment, harnessing science and technology, and advancing the transition to net zero emissions, all elements of the Great Reset, are fundamental to building the future we need.
The world's problems fit on three sides of a triangle. It's one versus many, man versus nature, and the unfortunate foundation is long-term versus short-term.
We had already income inequality that was fueling income, race, gender inequality. We have a climate emergency, which we can't walk away from. There's no doubt that the very survival of the human race requires us to act.
Any recovery stimulus should have green conditions attached to it. Energy prices should reflect real costs.
You need private sector capital, private sector ingenuity, private sector technology, and private sector capabilities to come to the party. You need enormous trust between the private sector and the public sector for this to actually work.
We have to change our economies dramatically in the next 20 or 30 years, and the next 10 years is absolutely decisive.
The recovery has to be greener than any of the previous recoveries. And in order to do that, we need to ensure that the stimulus package, including fiscal and monetary, are much greener than they were before. So we cannot waste this opportunity to ensure that the very precious money that's raised from the next generation is spent on green and low carbon.
We will now start a quite high number of task forces to look at all the different issues, and we will present all those ideas to the people assembled in Davos. But at the same time, we will make Davos very different, very open, to ensure that we do not fall back to old recipes, but that we really look at forward-oriented solutions.
Young entrepreneurs, especially from developing countries that are there and can see the right problem, can really step up and create solutions.
Finding profitable solutions to problems of the people and the planet, and we're starting to see firms move to that, and we're seeing firms that behave responsibly in that way actually doing better on conventional measures of profitability and doing better in this particular period.
We've also seen social entrepreneurs step in incredible ways. Not only has it exposed the precarious reality, but then it has also exposed the opportunity to recenter, the reset around the most vulnerable and those on the edge, where it only takes something like a pandemic or difficult circumstances to slide into poverty.
And then we need to couple that with new initiatives to equip more people with the digital skills they'll need, not just to have a tech job, but a job that is increasingly tech-enabled in almost every part of the economy. If we can empower consumers with all of this, I think we unleash this next generation to have a much broader impact more quickly.
We can never again allow our health, education, care systems to be underfunded.
We need our imagination here. Possible is being redefined each and every day right now. So the next time someone tells us that tackling climate change is either too costly or too difficult, I think we need to remind them and remind ourselves of what just is happening right now.
We not only have to demand change, but also create change.
We have to live up to the expectations which we have created, and we will do so.
到处都是监控，每天装甲车啊、一些坦克啊在市区里面走来走去，也没有具体的法律规定，没有它的一些尺寸。
Reporting in Xinjiang, in China's far northwest, feels like traveling in a war zone.
So we're here in Urumqi, which is the capital of Xinjiang, in a market downtown. The security here is incredibly tight. There are armored cars on the street, police stations on every corner, and tons of surveillance cameras.
In the past year, police have stepped up security. The region is now under what's probably the most intense government surveillance in the world. Here, China is experimenting with futuristic spying technologies. For years, China has tried to suppress a separatist movement made up of Uyghurs, a local ethnic group. Authorities say the separatists are Islamic terrorists. We came to see what life looks like in a place where your every move can be monitored. To be in Xinjiang means being checked every day, multiple times a day. When you go to a market, when you drive a car, when you take a train, even your smartphone is checked. As reporters, we were stopped dozens of times by police in just a few days. Our interviews were interrupted. We were detained and chased out of town.
China's pursuing an ambitious plan to create an omnipresent video surveillance network. The Shuiliang or Sharp Eyes project aims to extend and integrate video surveillance from cities into villages and from roads into residential compounds. It aims to use artificial intelligence, big data, and deep learning to analyze this mountain of video evidence, to work out who's doing what, where, and when, to track suspects and the people they associate with, and even to predict crime. In November, I visited 3 tech companies in the cities of Beijing and Chongqing to see how China plans to make the communist slogan, "The masses have sharp eyes," into a reality. Here are a few of the ideas that the tech companies showcased. These cameras are looking at a road junction, and they're identifying everything that's passing through. They're looking at cars, reading the number plates, and they're looking at pedestrians, classifying pedestrians according to their age, their gender, what kind of clothes they're wearing, even what kind of hairstyles they have. This software analyzes crowds. It's producing a heat map of where people are massing together, the sort of thing you might use to prevent overcrowding. You can also see that it's also able to track individuals through the crowd. So if you're looking for a suspect, this is the kind of software you might want to use. Here we can see 2 cameras picking faces out of the crowd, comparing those faces to a national database of suspects, of wanted men and women. The police then look at the matches that are flagged and see whether they think that's someone they're looking for. They can then swoop in to potentially arrest or question the person that the cameras have identified. A completely different application now. This camera is trained on the face of a truck driver. It's looking at his facial expressions and what he's doing to see whether he's showing any signs of tiredness. If the score rises above a certain level, then he's seen as too tired to drive. His company will be alerted. They'll give him a call and tell him to take a rest. The Sharp Eyes project has already been rolled out in more than 50 cities.
Back in Hangzhou, the Yu family goes about their daily routine, which they believe is easier thanks to technology. Shopping without cash is the standard. 10-year-old Man Fei can buy a drink to go with a scan of her smartwatch. The family leaves a trail of digital footprints everywhere it goes. They're seen by companies as well as government agencies. China is among the countries collecting the most amount of personal data. The government wants to go a step further by implementing a ranking system of individual behavior. The project is already being piloted in the Yu family's home city, so they can collect points.
The better you score, the more advantages you have in your daily life. I think it encourages people to voluntarily follow the rules.
That's how the social credit system works in Hangzhou. Those who violate laws, like not paying their taxes on time or not paying back loans, have points deducted. People are also penalized for making false statements in the country's COVID-19 app. People are rewarded for volunteering, staying fit through exercise, or using low-emission transportation. Donating blood also earns points. Other cities also reward organ donors, or everyday things like returning books to the library on time. But what precisely is collected?
In China, there are few protections limiting how much information the government can collect about its 1.4 billion citizens. Everyone over the age of 16 is required to have an official state-issued ID card that the government now wants to use to centralize all that information. And China is investing heavily in tech companies to help transform that government data into a virtually omniscient surveillance network. One of those companies is Megvii. It recently received a capital investment of nearly $500 million, part of which is from a state-run VC fund. But the name chosen for its premier piece of technology is a bit of a tell.
Skynet. What is that?
The Terminator is the favorite film of our founder. So they use the same name, but they want to put something good into this system.
So, okay, in the Terminator, Skynet is evil, rains down death from the sky. But in China, Skynet is good.
Yeah, that's the difference.
So how do you think your facial recognition technology will change China?
Everything happened in the public can be recorded. We can know exactly what happened in every second, in every corner of the city. This is a video stream in a subway station by our smart camera, so we can capture every face in real time. Still like some criminal person is out there. There is the red box, so there is a warning to the police station that there is a criminal person, so I need to locate them.
So when it looks out onto a crowd, it's tracking all these faces and it's cross-checking those faces against what?
Criminal database.
And how many fugitives have been apprehended through this system?
Over 3,000 cases in nationwide. Yeah, just one year.
In 1 year?
Yeah, 1 year.
Wow. So what you're working on now already seems like sci-fi. What do you think the future will look like in like 5 years?
Have you seen a film just like a Black Mirror? You just stand there and your face there is a point. So maybe that is the future.
But that's like a horror show.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that is maybe the kind of the future. Every people have their social points, I think.
If you like spit gum on the sidewalk, it will
yeah, your points will be.
And your point would go down?
Maybe that is the future.
But that future isn't too far away.
Now China's government is testing a new social credit score system which would rank its citizens based on their online behavior.
While it won't fully roll out until 2020, starting this year, China will ban people with a bad score from booking flights and train rides.
Shanghai, home to 24 million residents. Each city district has a data hub where all the information is collected. Authorities call it the brain. Foreign media are seldom allowed access. Employees in this district alone have access to 290,000 cameras, and in some cases, they can control them directly. Algorithms help staff sort through the material. This monitor maps all construction sites, and the red dots flag irregularities. In one instance, the AI detects a construction worker not wearing a safety helmet. Sheng Dan co-developed the system. It took less than a year to get the first version up and running. Now she can monitor every resident from this office.
我们排摸的这个就是整个小区里面的楼房的一些信息。
We've mapped the residential buildings in the district. Which ones are occupied? Where there are vacancies? Where elderly people are living alone? Where care or help is needed? It's all stored in our system and can be called up in real time.
那么这样的一些基本信息呢，也都在这个微平台上就可以实时的调取出来。
Even those who do not dispose of their trash properly are recorded. Residents who aren't following the rules are captured on camera from 3 different angles. The so-called brain acts swiftly. Whether it's an illegally parked car or unsolicited advertising, offences can be handled by patrol officers who are connected to the control centre via a mobile app.
居村的干部，或者是我们居村里面的志愿者，发现问题。
As soon as the squads and volunteers in residential districts spot an issue, they can report it and upload footage. They take a photo, report the issue, and then our system automatically decides which department to forward the matter to.
一个区分，这个事项可能是由哪个部门进行有效的一个处理的。
The brain in Shanghai's Pudong district is just one component to the overarching surveillance plan the Chinese government is pushing across the country. The goal is to have complete coverage in all major public places, such as train stations, street intersections, and parks. China's state media boasts that police can identify every single person on the street in just 1 second.
Hey, so check it out. All them years playing video games paid off. This somebody's real job driving a robot from miles away. You know what I'm saying? Hey, and look, it reminds me of something. Can you imagine being followed around giving an annoying message. Like, people hate when I repeat myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is funny, man.
Let's keep Singapore healthy. For your own safety and for those around you, please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you. Let's keep Singapore healthy. For your own safety and for those around you, please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you. Let's keep Singapore healthy. For your own safety and for those around you, please...
97X, the future of rock and roll. 97X, bam, the future of rock and roll. 97X, bam, the future of rock and roll. 97X, bam, the future of rock and roll.
Ray, enough already.
97X, bam, the future of rock and roll. 97X, bam, the future of rock and roll.
Coming out, thanks also to the leadership of China in terms of fighting the pandemic, in terms of reinvigorating its economy. We have now a window of opportunity to create this global reset which we all need. This global reset is necessary because we have seen that our policies which we pursued before the coronavirus struck us, that those policies do not create the necessary inclusion of society necessary for harmonious societal development. And they do not create the sustainability of what we are doing. Just think of the global warming, how fast it is developing in the opposite, into the negative direction. So we have a great opportunity at this moment, like we had after World War II, to have in some way a new beginning in our global cooperation, in globalization, in managing our global affairs. I hope that we will not miss this opportunity. What does it mean, globalization 4.0? Definitively, it has to be more sustainable. We cannot continue to destroy our environment. It has to be more inclusive. Those people who have lost the hope for a better future, they have to be given a new vision. They don't want to wake up with nightmares. They want to wake up with dreams. We need a more multi-stakeholder globalization, which means a globalization not led just by governments, but where solutions are elaborated jointly by all stakeholders of society.
I hope that I can impart some knowledge as to what IoT, the catch-all term for the Internet of Things, what it really means and how it can be expanded into the idea of a smart city. On-stage presentations included a few really important aspects that might be considered current hurdles toward a fully connected world. Digital equity, as it is called. Magic Johnson happened to be one of the key figures partnering with both companies and city governments to help bring connectivity to people of all backgrounds. Indeed, one of the aspects that need to be specifically addressed in the push for a smart city is how to upgrade and outfit every community with the tech needed to make it a reality.
We need patience in this space because in a lot of areas we have a lot of work to do. The technology is there, but we have to actually bring the complete ecosystem together.
And currently there are a number of city governments around the country that look to be the early examples of what this could look like.
And so we're working to upgrade our Wi-Fi infrastructure within community centers and our public spaces owned by the city. Our city buses are equipped with Wi-Fi, but we want to expand those efforts to include our metro centers and caller ride services. In addition, we're looking into creating a municipal Wi-Fi system that enhances the capabilities of existing broadband technology, including city-owned broadband.
But really, the most critical challenge, of course, is the human one. We've got to get skills into the hands into the homes, helping folks get online. We've helped thousands of families so far get those digital skills so they can really participate in the digital economy.
But we wanted to show you one such city that is showing just what is possible, and it really is remarkable. Now, while certain European cities are still trailing a handful of electric buses here, half a dozen there, some electric taxis there, China has more than 400,000. Shenzhen is the shining example of how to electrify land-based public transport, and we sent our correspondent, Elliot Richards, to report on how they are blazing a trail.
You may have read a few years ago about a little news story around a city in the south of China which changed its diesel bus fleet to electric in one day. 16,000 buses. So how do you charge 16,000 buses overnight? Well, we're on the way to find out to the city of Shenzhen. This is a bullet train with beds. We're on our way to Shenzhen and you're watching the Fully Charged Show. And we're here in Shenzhen, home to around 12 million people. And ever since 1980, when this was designated a special economic zone, it has boomed, as you can see behind me. And we're going to see what the home of BYD can offer in terms of electric infrastructure. This is a city that's fully on electric, and let's go and have a look at how they're doing that. So I'm here in the central hub of Shenzhen Bus Company at their intelligent center. Now this is where they have all of the live data from all of the buses and all of the taxis that are driving around Shenzhen now. And I think you'll agree that this is incredibly impressive. So all of these little dots you see here are actual buses on their routes right now, and they're being tracked across the whole city. And I just want to show you some of the stats that they have up on the screen here. Now they do have some things like punctuality, income and things like that. That's all being tracked and monitored on a daily basis. Now, I want to just point out a few of the facts and figures here. So currently Shenzhen Bus Company have about 6,000 of the buses on the Shenzhen routes. There's 16,000 in total, shared between 3 bus companies. So these guys have about 6,000 electric buses. They also have 181 depots, all with chargers available to do the daytime charging or the nighttime charging, which is actually more common. And then they have nearly 2,000 chargers, so those are individual charging piles for the buses to charge up. And then this is an incredible statistic, okay? Just over 1 million miles per day are driven by all of the combined buses. Now, just think of how much diesel pollution that would have been putting out previously. 1 million kilometers per day in this city. It doesn't even bear worth, thinking about. But now it's all EV, so it's a lot cleaner. And then the final one is just the daily ridership of around just over 1,100,000 riders.
Well, the whole electrification process started in 2008. We started with some hybrid buses first, and then in 2011, Shenzhen held the University Games, and then we introduced the first fully electric bus route, and that was with 100 buses. by 2017, we actually purchased about another 5,000 buses, and we became fully electric in 2017 with 6,000 buses. With the taxi, we started the whole electrification process also back in 2010. We started with setting up a joint venture company with BYD initially, and then gradually we transform our whole entire fleet to electric also. By 2018, our entire taxi fleet became electric with about 5,000 buses. So all in all, we have 6,000 electric buses and 5,000 electric taxis.
The other thing I want to show you, obviously you've got the interactive map here, which we can see all the taxis. Green means there's someone in there, red means there's no one in there, or the other way around, I can't remember. But in terms of safety, all of the taxis in Shenzhen have cameras in them, and this data can all be tracked back to here. So you can actually see live data from the cameras inside the car, so out the window and within the taxi. So something very different from the US and Europe, but it keeps and ensures the safety of the vehicle's occupants here in China.
Thank you for this opportunity to address this community at this very important meeting. We, the World Economic Forum, greatly welcome the launch of this roadmap and share with Secretary General Guterres and Special Advisor Hochschild the feeling of great urgency for increased and improved global cooperation. COVID-19 has irrevocably changed our world. So many of us had to learn how to live differently, to learn how to work, socialize, shop, and collaborate differently. And we are doing all of this online. Since the onset of the corona crisis, internet usage has increased by 70%. The use of communication apps has increased by 300%, and virtual collaboration tools by 600%. And some video streaming services have grown 20-fold. This is only true for those who are connected to the internet. However, today, 30 years after the invention of the World Wide Web by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, this stands at just 53% of the world's population. Many individuals and populations in emerging economies around the world are now facing the impact of COVID-19 without the benefit of the connectivity that all of us take so much for granted. Of the 25 least connected countries in the world, 21 are in Africa. And the gap between those who are connected and those who are not is so dramatically felt today. The World Economic Forum developed a joint action plan together with the ITU, the World Bank, GSMA, and our industry partners. It highlights key immediate actions for private-public collaboration to ensure that digital connectivity is available and expanded to those who need it most. This has already been shared with 170 countries and is in active use. This fast-track partnership is deeply encouraging. A number of our partners have highlighted that we have made more progress in the last 4 months than in the last 10 years. Technology has been a critical weapon also in our fight against COVID. In April, the World Economic Forum established the COVID Digital Response Network, which has already compiled a compendium of over 90 lighthouse examples of how technology can be used to respond to the COVID crisis. In the Great Reset process, the Forum is undertaking to shape the post-corona era We have to pay also special attention to the SMEs. Small businesses, which make up 40 to 90% of GDP in economies around the world, are facing today a struggle for survival. The ability for small businesses to have access not just to affordable quality connectivity, but to common digital services such as digital identity, security and digital financial tools, which will be critical to their success. The ability of this community of small and medium-sized businesses to secure their livelihoods will have a tremendous impact on social resilience and cohesion in every country. As we advance our collaboration and establish our shared global priorities and roadmaps, I offer you 5 thoughts to guide our collective efforts. First, we must be ambitious. The time for incremental change and growth of digital access is over. We must highlight the critical nature of this challenge as foundational to so many others. And we have to bring those who care about education, health, climate, equality and growth to also be the champions in our mission to bring connectivity to all. Second, we must invest in digital inclusion with innovative financing models. Currently, only 1% of funding from multinational development banks goes towards digital infrastructure. Third, we must think of digital infrastructure and digital inclusion holistically, including digital identity and payment solutions as much as simple connectivity. Fourth, success will only be possible through deep, sustained cross-industry and private-public partnership to ensure both affordability for consumers as well as sustainable economic and fiscal models for continued service provision. And finally, fifth, we should be guided by core principles for our shared digital future: inclusion, trust, and sustainability. It is clear that the COVID-19 crisis is a watershed moment for digital infrastructure and services. Digital is the fabric of our post-COVID lives, and we will continue to rely on technology more and more, unless we rapidly tackle the challenge to bring high-quality, universal internet access to all. We will not be able to build inclusive economies or achieve our sustainable development goals.
2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Hawthorne-based SpaceX launched another round of 60 satellites into orbit this morning. It is the 13th batch, just in time for October, and the company's mission that aims to provide high-speed internet across the globe. Today's launch ended a long stretch of delays that go back to mid-September, including back-to-back launch aborts last week, and yesterday's delay due to stormy weather.
What's in your back pocket or purse might soon come to an end. By 2020, mobile wallets on our smartphones are expected to surpass the use of credit and debit cards in the U.S. That has already happened in China. Ben Tracy is in Beijing to show us what a nearly cashless society actually looks like. Ben, good morning.
Good morning. So when I moved here to China a couple of months ago, I kept getting funny looks every time I would pull cash out of my wallet to pay for things. And then I got one of these. It's a code on my phone, and now I can basically buy anything here in China. When you pay for something, how do you pay for it?
Mobile phone.
On the streets of Beijing, cash is definitely not king. What do you think of people who use cash to pay for things?
That's rare and weird, he says. Only the elderly and people who don't know how to use a phone pay cash. This woman says, I rarely take my wallet when I go out, just my phone. That's because those phones can buy just about anything, from clothes in the store to steamed buns on the street. They're used to pay for bike rides and bus rides, rent and utility bills.
When was the last time you used cash? A month ago? Wow, that's a long time.
WeChat and Alipay dominate China's mobile market, and payments on their platforms totaled more than $5.5 trillion last year, a 200% jump from the year before, and nearly 50 times more than the value of mobile payments in the U.S.
One of the big reasons mobile payments have caught on so quickly here in China is because of what most people here don't have in their wallets: credit cards. They basically went from a cash-based society to a cashless one and skipped the step in between.
China has leapfrogged the U.S. into going to a cashless society.
Andy Mock is an economist in Beijing. He says China's cashless revolution has happened in just 3 years, largely thanks to these things called QR codes. You simply scan them with your phone to pay. Nearly every business and person has one. From the farmer's market to the musician on the street playing for a mobile tip.
You can give a homeless person money with your phone. You would never see that in the U.S.
All you have to do is scan that code to transfer money. And it really is ubiquitous in China, from the largest cities, the fanciest hotels, to the most humble street-side shacks will all use QR codes.
The Chinese are comfortable doing everything on their phones, while in the U.S., credit cards and online shopping via personal computers still rule.
These kinds of legacy technologies make any adoption of newer generations of technologies much more slower. So in this sense, I think the U.S. has a little bit of catching up to do.
A recent survey found that 40% of Chinese people carry less than $15 on them, but they would never dream of leaving home without this. As one guy told me on the street, you can't achieve anything without your phone.
So check this out. This is digital payments in India, right? And look at that. That's in millions of transactions. You see that? Now look at the year, 2012. See how far China is ahead of India? And now look at USA at the bottom, right? Now we in 2013, right? Just keep watching. Crypto showed up in 2008. All this online commerce, you see 2015? All this online commerce pops up. Watch what happens in 2016, then 2018. Look at China. These are the two of the largest nations on earth. These are billions of people combined. What, 3 billion people? Look at 2018. These are digital payments and millions of transactions. You see the USA? Do y'all see that? We are in, as Jay-Z said, La La Land. Look at 2021.
In China, face recognition is already available and it's pretty widespread. There are apps where you can use your face to log in. There are stores you can go into and pay for things using just your face. So this technology has, in recent years, become so accurate that it's possible to recognize people even in sort of grainy CCTV footage from a funny angle with odd lighting. You know, a couple of years ago that would have been inconceivable. It just wasn't possible. But new machine learning techniques have made it possible for computers to recognize people's faces even more accurately than a person can. The big obstacle here, obviously, is the Big Brother element. You know, when I saw this stuff in China, I thought it was really impressive, really, you know, going to have a big impact. But it's also a little bit creepy, a little bit kind of dystopian. So if it's going to come to Europe, come to the US in the same sort of level, I think that they're going to have to be some sort of trade-off, and people are going to have to see the convenience as so great that they're willing to give up a little bit more of their privacy.
More Chinese leave their wallets at home and pay for their goods and services using mobile devices. Even this might seem like an outdated method from September 1st, because the consumers are now facing a new way of making payments. The payment is completed in just 2 steps. First, scanning the customer's face and then entering the mobile phone number they linked to Alipay. That is a virtual bank account created by Ant Financial, the affiliated financial service of Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba.
The newly developed new algorithm methods considering multi-biometric features. We can identify customers when they make faces or stand crowded in front of the camera. We can even tell the difference between 2 identical twins. Other factors like aging calculation, face and body movement, and location information are used to realize multiple layers of security confirmation.
Although facial recognition technology is widely applied, using it in payment systems has still aroused concerns about security among users. Around recognition has practical consequences when we talk about money.
Boasting over 500 million active users, Alipay has been using face detection for customer logins since 2015. Over one-third of users have scanned faces in the system. Our accuracy reaches 99.8%, higher than human examination. Our bottom line is the assurance we guarantee for technical mistakes.
Then the bill is paid. So that's a very seamless experience for customer, that in a dine-in experience. In the future, if this kind of technology can be recognized by the consumers, we are going to continue to promote that in our different restaurants.
To my surprise, the new technology is well embraced by senior citizens when the statistics show that millions of Alipay's users are aged above 60.
I'm 62 years old. I used mobile payment before for grocery shopping to save the trouble of carrying cash with me. The technology is developing so fast, it's amazing.
China's mobile devices payment volume has reached $5.5 trillion in 2016, and it's the target market of facial recognition payment system. Imagine the future, you go for a spending spree with just a look into a scanner. Mission is done. Hunan, CGTN, Hangzhou, Zhejiang Province.
In China, people use mobile services owned by Alibaba and Tencent to do almost everything. They chat, shop, send money to each other, and even make purchases in physical stores. And the country is becoming cashless. So here's the scary thing for American finance executives. The banks never get a cut. In fact, many Chinese don't even have bank accounts. China is among the growing number of countries showing that payments can happen cheaply and easily without banks or credit cards. In contrast, US consumers still rely on banks for most of their purchases. Even mobile payments made through apps like Apple Pay, Uber, or Venmo are tied to users' cards or bank accounts. That all adds up to a feast of fees for many of the companies that handle and process payments. For a typical $100 credit card purchase in the US, $97.25 goes to the merchant, and the rest is split between issuing banks, payment processors, the merchant's bank, and card networks. Those small slices add up to billions of dollars for banks every year. If apps were to grab market share in the US at roughly the same rate as they have in China, banks would lose a projected $43 billion in revenue from one of their most profitable businesses. And that's not the end of it. Banks also generate revenue by dispensing cash and administering checking accounts. If payment apps were to replace paper money and offer alternatives to regular bank accounts, as they increasingly have in China, other sources of income could take a hit. Checking accounts alone generate $3 billion in bank fees in the US. Whether or not you have access to a bank, being able to make and receive payments through your phone is an obvious advantage, as Alipay and WeChat Pay have demonstrated in China.
To make flying safer in the new normal, Asia is launching something new, and we got the privilege to check it out before the launch. Let's go! This is Faces, AirAsia's new facial recognition feature that replaces your traditional boarding pass with your face. The low-cost carrier had previously introduced Faces in Johor Bahru a couple of years ago, and now they've introduced an improved version that's more convenient and is also more portable, making it easier to deploy at all touchpoints. To find out what's new, we spoke to Mr. Javed Malek, AirAsia Group's Chief Operating Officer.
Well, Faces is something that we've been working on for the last almost 3 years, and it's our program for biometric travel. What does that mean? Simply, you don't need to take your passport, your ID, or any papers out anymore, and simply you use your face to travel. We allow you to check in, book a ticket, board the flight, and even buy products in the future using your face, simply integrated on our AirAsia Super App.
Whenever I'm in China, this is what I see. People paying with their faces. People using their face to enter buildings. If you're lazy and you don't want to find your wallet, this is kind of amazing. But if you're into privacy, this will freak you out. But if China is any indicator of the future of tech, your face could be your wallet, your ID card, your passport, and heck, even your car keys. This car maker is letting you turn on your engine simply through your face. In recent years, facial recognition and surveillance has grown a lot in the US, by the police and in airports. But will private companies be next?
This is such an interesting story. I'm curious your take on how much of this is government doing just in a digital version what government normally does, and how much of it is unusual and odd.
Hey, John, good to be with you. So I think let's first of all, acknowledge, the unusual aspect of getting these documents. So these are agreements between Apple and 4 states that have agreed, that signed on to their plan to basically digitize your state-issued ID and put it into the iPhone, onto the Wallet app. So, as you know, Apple's known for its secrecy. So, we managed to get some of these. And basically what they show is, what I think is remarkable is the degree to which Apple is really in the driver's seat when it comes to calling the shots on these. So the states that have agreed to offer this program have to, commit to a wide-ranging series of measures, including standing up, creating and maintaining these tech systems to issue these virtual credentials, putting project managers on this to answer Apple inquiries, marketing and promoting the use of these Apple IDs, and it goes on and on. And ultimately, the contracts that we've reviewed are very clear. This is all at the state's expense. So if you were to take a step back, think about this. This is essentially the states subsidizing the new feature that Apple has talked about, boasting about, in its developers conference just in June.
Interesting. Or is it Apple subsidizing states transitioning to digital IDs, which, I don't know if they could do that on their own, but if you view this as a government contract where these states are contracting with Apple to adopt their system for digital ID, then I guess you would expect them to pay and have to implement the system in the way that this platform designates.
Well, John, you know, I have no doubt that the end user to these will be probably delighted by the ease of use and the ability to verify your identity in a variety of remote and in-person scenarios. But why should the taxpayer be on the hook for that, for a technology that's going to go to benefit the Apple, right? Its investors and its shareholder base, and less than half of the population who uses the Apple iOS. This doesn't say anything about Google or anything, or the Android or anything like that. So I just think it's an interesting approach to this. And if you look at other countries have pursued national digital IDs, identification cards, but from a platform agnostic approach, so that it's not necessarily a $250 trillion, $2.5 trillion tech company that is taking advantage of this.
But have they been good? Have they functioned well, I guess is the question. Hewitt Deirdre, by the way, do you remember in the early days of the pandemic, we had this sort of novel partnership between Apple and Google, and they were going to partner to do COVID tracking. And this was seen as the best sort of technical solution, but there were so many questions around privacy and how they were going to do it, and perhaps hold up with government entities. Do you think that this could go the way of that and just not really get off the ground because of all of these concerns?
Well, I think if you read the contract, it's really clear, and Apple is super prescriptive in what it needs to stand up this program, and it's requiring the states to work with law enforcement, for instance, and IRS, for instance, to get everybody on the same page. I think it's going to be successful, and I think the real question is, you bring up the idea of, well, it's got to work, right? And I think this is a real debate about what we're willing to give up in pursuit of efficiency and efficacy versus just really the principles of whether or not the government should be ceding the ability to verify identity to a sole private tech